My name is Margaret. I'm 71 years old, and I've been thinking about something I haven't said out loud in a very long time. Not because it's a secret, exactly. More because saying it makes it real in a way I've been avoiding. I traded something for quiet. I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I thought I was just keeping the peace, being reasonable, not making waves. But now, looking back, I can see the shape of it clearly. The things I didn't say, the parts of myself I folded up and put away because they felt too loud, too much, too inconvenient for the life I thought I was supposed to have. I grew up in a house where raised voices meant something had gone wrong. My mother never yelled. My father barely spoke at all unless it was necessary. Dinner was quiet. Evenings were quiet. Even our arguments were quiet. They happened in tightened jaws and long silences, not in words. I learned early that the way to be good, to be loved, to be safe, was to not disturb the air around me. So I didn't. I became very good at it. When I was 23, I married a man named Robert. He was kind, steady. He worked in accounting and liked things orderly. We had a small wedding. My mother cried, but quietly. My father shook Robert's hand and said, "Take care of her." And Robert did. He took care of everything. He decided where we lived, a suburb 40 minutes from the city near his parents. He decided what we could afford, what made sense, what was practical. I wanted to go back to school. I'd always loved literature, wanted to teach, maybe write. But Robert said it didn't make sense financially, not right away, maybe later. So I waited. I got a job as a secretary at a law firm. It was fine. It paid well enough. We had 2 children, a boy, then a girl. And for a long time, I told myself I was happy. I told myself this was what it was supposed to look like. A good husband, healthy children, a house with a backyard. Quiet. But there were moments, small ones. Moments when I'd be folding laundry or washing dishes, and I'd feel this tightness in my chest, like I'd forgotten to say something important, but I couldn't remember what it was. I'd be at a dinner party and someone would ask me a question. What did I think about something, some book or some news story? And I'd open my mouth, and then Robert would answer for me. Not in a cruel way, just naturally, like he knew what I thought, like it didn't need to be said. And I'd smile and nod and let it go, because it was easier, because making a fuss felt selfish, because I didn't want to be the kind of woman who caused trouble over nothing. One night, when my daughter was 7, she came into the kitchen when I was making dinner. She asked me why I never sang anymore. I didn't know what she meant at first. She said, "You used to sing when I was little, in the car, in the morning." And I realized she was right. I had. I used to sing all the time, badly but happily. And somewhere along the way, I just stopped. I told her I didn't know, that I'd been busy. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, Robert had mentioned once, years before, that my singing in the car made it hard for him to think. So I stopped. I didn't even realize I'd stopped. When my son was 16, he asked me what I wanted to do with my life. We were sitting at the kitchen table. He had a college brochure in front of him. He said, "Mom, if you could do anything, what would it be?" And I didn't have an answer. I tried to laugh it off. I said something like, "I'm doing it. I'm your mom." But he didn't laugh. He just looked at me. And I saw something in his face I didn't like. Pity, maybe. Or worry. Like he could see something I couldn't. I thought about that conversation for weeks. I thought about all the times I'd been asked what I wanted. By my parents, by Robert, by friends, and how I'd learned to answer with what seemed easiest, what wouldn't cause friction, what wouldn't make anyone uncomfortable. I thought about going back to school again, But by then, it felt too late. The kids were in high school, Robert's career was demanding, we had routines. I told myself I'd wait until they were grown. Then I'd have time. Then I'd figure out who I was supposed to be. But when the kids left for college, the house didn't feel quieter. It felt empty. And I realized I didn't know what to do with myself. Robert and I would sit in the living room in the evenings, him reading the paper, me pretending to watch television. And I'd feel that tightness again, that feeling of something unsaid. One night I asked him if he ever wondered what our lives would have looked like if we'd done things differently. He looked up from his paper, confused. "What do you mean?" I said, "I don't know. If I'd gone back to school, if we'd moved somewhere different, if we'd wanted different things." He frowned. Why would we want different things? And I didn't know how to explain it. So I didn't. I said, "Never mind." And we went back to the quiet. That was 15 years ago. Robert passed 3 years ago. Heart attack. Sudden. He was 71. The funeral was quiet, like everything else. People said kind things. They told me how lucky I was to have had him. And I nodded, because they were right. He was a good man. He loved me in the way he knew how. But after he died, I started going through our things. Boxes in the attic, old photo albums, letters. And I found a notebook I'd kept when I was in my 20s, before we were married. It was full of ideas, things I wanted to write, places I wanted to go, questions I had about the world. I'd forgotten it existed. I sat on the attic floor and read through it, and I barely recognized the person who'd written it. She was curious. She had opinions. She wanted things. And I realized I'd spent 50 years making her smaller and smaller until she disappeared entirely. Not because Robert forced me to, but because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought quiet meant peace. I thought not asking for too much meant being loved. I thought making myself easy to live with was the same as being whole. But it wasn't. I started writing again after that. Not for anyone else, just for me. Little things, thoughts, memories. I joined a group at the library, other women my age, some older. We'd sit and talk about books, about our lives, and for the first time in decades, I said things I actually thought. Not what I thought people wanted to hear, just what I thought. And no one was angry. No one left. The world didn't fall apart. I wish I'd known that sooner. I wish I'd known that I could take up space and still be loved, that I could ask for things and it wouldn't ruin everything, that quiet isn't the same as peace. Real peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from being honest, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it disrupts the routine. My daughter called me last month. She's 43 now. She has 2 kids of her own. She told me she's thinking about going back to work, that she's been home with the kids for 10 years, and she's ready for something else. But her husband isn't sure. He thinks it'll be too much, too complicated. And I heard myself in her voice, that apologetic tone, like she was asking permission to want something. I told her something I wish someone had told me. I said, "Don't wait for it to make sense to everyone else." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mom, did you wait?" And I said, "Yes." "Do you regret it?" I thought about lying, but I didn't. I said yes. She didn't say anything after that, but I think she heard me. I think maybe that's all I can do now. Say the things I didn't say before. Not as advice, just as truth. I'm 71 years old, and I know what I traded for quiet. I traded myself. Not all at once, just a little bit at a time. A song here, a thought there, a dream I folded up and put away. Until one day I looked around and realized I didn't know who I was anymore. I don't know if I'll get all of her back, the woman I was before I learned to be quiet. But I'm trying. I'm writing. I'm speaking. I'm taking up space. And it feels strange, but it also feels right. If you're listening to this and you recognize that tightness I'm talking about, that feeling of something unsaid, don't wait as long as I did. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to fight. But don't disappear. Not for anyone. Not even for quiet. Because quiet isn't worth what it costs. Thank you for listening.